Joining us now, Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District, Virginia. Dr. Wittman, good to have you with us, sir.
John, it's great to be with you this morning.
Merry Christmas, and so that all our fans know, you're going to be once again guest hosting our show on Wednesday, December 30th, right?
Yes, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. 2 days before New Year's Eve, Rod Wittman at the helm here in the captain's chair, making it all work. My ratings are going to go through the roof. Rod Wittman, by the way, also announcing last week at the Advance that he has that he will be exploring a run for governor in Virginia in 2017, and a likely candidate for that. Congressman, I got to get to one thing, and then I'm going to get to Omnibus.
Sure.
We're going bananas today over the fact that the State Board of Elections has sanctioned a Republican Party of Virginia pledge that people have to sign in order to ask for a Republican ballot in the March 1st primary. I mean, Dr. Wittman, let me just be as candid as I can. You guys are 0 for 7. You can't win a statewide race. You've lost 7 in a row. Now you're going to have people have to sign pledges on primary day in order to participate in the Republican Party of Virginia presidential primary. I mean, that's affrontive. That's egregious. What is the story here?
Well, John, I understand people's frustration, and we are certainly frustrated too. All of us want to make sure that our party opens up its arms, welcoming people in. We want people from all different areas to participate in these elections. On the other side of it, though, people are frustrated too with the potential for there to be manipulations with that. And I know folks said, hey, listen, we want to make sure that that the party itself, members of the party, get to do the selection of their candidates. So I understand that side of the story too, but having something that is exclusive, something that says, listen, unless you're willing to adhere to a very, very small and selective group of criteria, then you can't participate, doesn't open things up the way they need to be opened up for a large number of people. Now, other states do it by party registration to say, hey, listen, you register as a party, or you can register as an independent, and when the primaries come around, you can vote either in one or the other. If you're an independent, you can vote in the Democratic primary, you can vote in the Republican primary, but you can't vote in both, which keeps you from being able to manipulate that particular situation. So I think we certainly as a party need to make sure that our doors are open to anybody that wants to participate. I understand too, not wanting the process to be manipulated, to have folks that have other alternatives in coming to participate in our primaries in the selection process. But I also understand too that when you ask people to sign those pledges, and some folks will say, well, they're non-binding. Well, I think people look at the pledge from a standpoint of integrity, and that is if they're going to sign something, that means something to them. So you can't just say, well, you just sign it and really don't worry about it. I think it does matter, and I think too that we need to be inclusive. And we as a party need to have, I think, further debate about how do we create a system where, indeed, we are as inclusive as possible, getting as many people to participate, but also assuring, too, that we don't have a system where the outcome can be manipulated by people that don't have our party's best interest in mind. And we have, unfortunately, in some instances, seen that manipulation go on. So I think that's where people's concerns are.
Well, look, and if you want to make party registration something that should be the law in Virginia, then the General Assembly needs to sanction that, pass it. Meantime, they can't get out of committee. So this whole thing to me, look, when people have to go to participate in a primary and simply say, I want the Republican ballot, and they say, well, in order to vote in this, to get a Republican ballot, you have to sign this pledge, fill out your name, address, statement of affiliation. It's intimidating. And a lot of people don't want to be bothered with that. They just want to go in, make their decision, and go home. And I also happen to think, this is just me, and I don't think there's any doubt, I'm convinced that this whole thing was concocted in order to stop Trump, which infuriates me even more. So I want to get to the omnibus bill.
Sure.
Congressman, I can't tell you the number of Republicans that I have talked to that are just frustrated beyond belief that this thing got through Congress with 150 Republican backers in the House, all these people back in it in the Senate on the Republican side. It raises the debt $700 trillion. It busted all of the caps we have. It gave Obama a complete victory on everything. In fact, I have to ask you this question. If Nancy Pelosi was the majority leader and Harry Reid, the speaker, and Reid was the majority leader, how would this bill be any different?
I don't know, John. As you said, there's a variety of things that I think concern all of us with the bill, things that it needed to do. I mean, even just fundamental things. Think about this. When you look at the number of dollars that need to be going to our nation's defense, at a time when I argue the world is as dangerous as it's ever been, and when we beforehand have worked very, very hard to try to get dollars back into our military budget for things like readiness, that is to make sure that our troops are properly trained and they're properly equipped. And when we see we fight so much for that, and then with what comes out of the process, we see a reduction in those dollars this year by $5 billion, where we're trying to make up for things that didn't happen in years past from the disproportionate way sequester affected the military. And then you see what's happened elsewhere in the budget where there's additional spending. Again, another place where you say the priorities that need to be reflected in the budget are not reflected there. And as you said, too, the budget is not just a document that lays out what we're going to spend, which, as you point out, the $700 billion above what is just a balanced budget is a terrible thing. But then secondly, on top of it, budgets are meant also to be policy documents, to state clearly the policy objectives of the Congress, both the House and the Senate. And this, I think, fell short on a number of those areas. And I understand negotiating back and forth and what some folks look for with that. But I can tell you, one of the reasons I voted no is that it fell short in so many different areas, places where, we should have said, no, these are the things that must be done. And, John, this goes back to an even more fundamental issue. You will always end up in this place if you allow these negotiations to go to the last minute and do just continue to extend this through these continuing resolutions. I argue our ability as a majority party in both the House and the Senate will only get realized if the House does its job on time, getting these appropriations bills done before the end of July, having the Senate get those done, sending each of those individual bills to the President's desk where you can make those specific decisions. You can highlight the policy things that we are interested in. And those are the things that you can do. But if you wait to the last minute and use these omnibus bills where you combine a bunch of different bills and you throw a bunch of other stuff in there, kind of sweeteners to say, well, if we put this in and this in, this in, we'll get all these votes, that is absolutely the worst way to legislate. And I've been saying it since I've been in Congress. This is what you end up with, these ridiculous continuing resolutions, these ridiculous omnibus bills, which abdicate our responsibility to make the tough decisions if you don't get the job done on time. And on top of that, to allow Congress to leave town. And I immediately went to Speaker Boehner after Congress was leaving town on August the 1st of this year and said, Speaker Boehner, call us back into session. If you really want to highlight what Congress needs to do and all the important issues that need to be addressed, call Congress back into town. And I know members would not be happy, but call us back into town to get those things done. And that's really where we need to be. And when we don't do that, John, this is where we end up, with this dysfunction, with bills that have all these other things in here, these must-pass bills, and they are not providing for the direction we need as a nation. And that's what we saw this past week.
Well, Congressman, the bigger issue here, Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican 1st District of Virginia, is that a lot of Republicans and conservatives feel they've been betrayed once again. We gave you a bigger majority in the House. We went with you on Speaker Ryan. We gave you a bigger the majority in the Senate, and we feel once again we've been lied to, betrayed, and sold out. I mean, look, Congressman, slipping into this thing at the final minute is a provision that is going to triple the number of H-2B visas for foreign workers seeking jobs at hotels, theme parks, ski resorts, golf courses, to just drive down wages to satisfy a specific class of big globalist donors that are looking for cheap labor. I mean, this didn't have anything to do with spending or continuing resolution or shutting the government down or anything else. And so conservatives just feel they've been lied to and betrayed by Republicans. Do you understand how frustrated some people are?
I do, John. I've had the opportunity, over the past week as we led up to this vote, to talk to a large number of Republicans. In fact, I had an event up in Prince William County just this past week on Wednesday, and to a person in that room, people were frustrated and said, Rob, how do we get to this particular point? And we were talking through the different provisions in this bill, including things, as you said, added in, like the visa provisions there, where people said, why add this to a bill like this, a must-pass bill, rather than actually have the debate in an open forum and let these things pass or fail on their own merits, have those type of debates. And I could not agree with them more. That's why, John, these omnibus bills, I think, are the worst way in the world to legislate, because, again, you throw everything but the kitchen sink into it in a must-pass piece of legislation, and things that, on their own, most likely wouldn't pass, now all of a sudden become law, because folks said, well, I can swallow something that I don't like here because I'm getting all these other things we don't like, or that they do like. It goes back to the idea of earmarks. I mean, there are no earmarks in this, but that's the same way the earmark system worked. It's like, well, we'll vote for these massive spending bills because I get some of those dollars specifically for pet projects in my district, and that led to what I think was a problem with the budgeting process. What you see now is, while not earmarks, you do see these policy additions to it, and things that should be debated in an open forum are not. I, like everybody else, get very frustrated by that, and it does go back, as you said, it's a fundamental element of trust between the public and its government to say, we want you to do things in an open and transparent way. We received this budget 48 hours before we were to vote on it, almost 2,000 pages long. To scramble to go through that to understand everything that's in it is a Herculean task, and you can't go through it in the level of depth, I believe, that you need to understand what's in there. And I don't think anybody should be there and say, well, I voted on it because of these 4 or 5 good things that I like, and I won't pay attention to the other pieces there. But it goes back to also, John, and you and I have talked about this, and I've heard it from a lot of your listeners and folks in across the state of Virginia, is that when we come up with these massive pieces of legislation, so complex, so many things in there that literally nobody can understand the full scope of what's in there, we have a duty, I believe, to take a couple steps backwards. And as I've said, break these things down into digestible pieces to where everybody can understand it. Legislators, the public, understand what's in it, fully debate what's in it, go through the process of amendments to say, hey, I don't like this piece that's in there. I'm going to put an amendment in. And what you do there is twofold, is you shine the light on the bill, but secondly, you also put members in a position where they have to understand the bill, because in order to put an amendment in, you have to understand what's in there, what's good and what's not so good, and then you can debate that. And if your idea doesn't make it through, then so be it. But that's the way the process is meant to be, not a bill that's so massive that it goes to the floor with people saying, well, there are a couple good things in there, I'll go ahead and vote for it, and end up where we are this past Thursday.
Well, I was talking to your colleague in the 7th District, Congressman Dr. Dave Bratt, who told me that this bill got put on his desk Wednesday at 2:30 a.m. And he had to vote on it, what was it, early on
Friday.
On Friday.
Yeah, the rule vote, which actually started the process, occurred on Thursday, and final passage was Friday morning. We went to the floor to vote Friday morning. It was right around 9:30 or so.
So you had basically 2,008 pages, and it got dumped on your desk Wednesday at 2 a.m. I mean, The whole process stinks, and a lot of people just feel betrayed by the whole system. What's the answer here, Congressman?
Well, I think the answer is, and Dr. Bratt and I are in full agreement, as well as other members of our Virginia delegation, that this is a situation where you cannot, I believe, continue down the path of, at the last minute, passing these massive pieces of legislation. You have to be able to break this down into its component pieces and do these individual appropriations bills. Get a budget done on time. That is, get that done, I think, no later than the middle of April. That gives you time to go through the lengthy debate that's needed on all these, and then everybody can understand what's the magnitude of what you're voting on. What are all those additional policy riders? And John, something that were to go in to change the visa program, as you saw here, under other circumstances, would have to go a full, open process to where people can debate it and say, yes, it's a good thing, or no, it's not a good thing. So this provision would have to been added if the process was done right as an amendment, and then it would get its own individual vote, which is the way things need to happen, not amassing all of these different pieces into a bill that you say, well, you know, we've got to continue operations of the government, so here we go. I think that's the way you fundamentally change it, and that's where all of our constituents, folks across the spectrum, can weigh in and say, we think this provision that you're adding to an appropriations bill is a good thing or a bad thing. And then people that want to add these things, John, and this is important, the people that want to add these things have to go to the House floor and have the debate about whether it's good or not. And they have to convince at least 218 of their colleagues that it's a good thing in order to get it through. Whereas with this, it's a conglomeration of different things, and what you're adding may not necessarily be a good thing, but you have people that are looking at other elements of the bill and said, well, we got to get this done, so I'll accept this other piece that I wouldn't otherwise accept if it were standing by itself. I think that's what frustrates people, and it frustrates me, too, because I believe in our system that every idea, every concept that makes its way to legislation must stand or fall based on its own merits, not based on what it's included with, but based on whether or not the concept is a valid concept and something that we need to do as a country, and that elected representatives, by a majority, have to agree to. That's not what happens when you see these omnibus budget bills come through.
Well, you hit that on the head. We're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Rob Wittman, Dr. Rob Wittman, for being with us. More information, go to whitman.house.gov. Rob Wittman will be guest hosting the John Fredericks Show on Thursday, December 30th. You want to tune in for that. Dr. Wittman, Merry Christmas to you and your family. Have a wonderful holiday, sir.
Thanks, John. You and your listeners have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.